Doris Miller. I didn't expect this would be a video that I would ever make, but it appears that some people really need a history lesson about their own country, and if it takes me, an Australian, to do it, then well, here goes. Doris Miller is a bloody hero. That is to put it bluntly and simply. He is a man who, against the very system he lived in, took it upon himself at great personal risk to save others and fight back, with no training. He is a man who fought like a lion on arguably the darkest day in the United States Navy's history, and on top of that, he is a man who the very system he fought like this for betrayed him because of purely his skin colour. That wasn't enough. Doris Miller then gave his life for the Allied cause barely 2 years later after his actions at Pearl Harbor. So no, naming a new warship after him is not DEI as Twitter would have you believe. It's a recognition for a genuine hero, and today we're going to learn about him. Doris Miller was born on the 12th of October 1919 in the town of Waco, Texas, to the couple Connery and Henrietta. His name Doris, it's been pointed out that it's a little odd for a boy's name. Well, it's actually got a fun story behind it. See, it was given to him as it was the name of the midwife who was there for Henrietta during her labour. But it was given to him because they believed that the baby coming was destined to be a girl. The third son in a household of 4 boys, Dory's early days can be summed up as all-American. He played as a fullback in the local football team, worked on the family farm, and in his spare time hunted with a .22 rifle. Dory's grades weren't the best though, and he was forced to repeat a year of schooling. But the young man wasn't a little kid anymore. In fact, he was a towering figure, standing at around 1.91 metres or over 6 feet tall, and clocking in at over 90 kilos or 200 pounds. Life on the farm wasn't going to be something that he could do forever though, and just before his 20th birthday, he enlisted in the US Navy for a 6-year stint on September 16th, 1939. Now, I intentionally left something blank there, and it's really important. I said that his early life can be described as the stereotype as all-American. Well, that would be true, save for one factor. Dory was black, and he was in the South. The playing field was not fair for him in the slightest, and it didn't get any fairer in the military because he was only allowed in a few specific fields, one of which was the mess, or kitchens. It should be mentioned as well as a mess attendant, specifically a black mess attendant, because black sailors were not allowed in combat roles at this stage. Dory Miller did not receive gunnery training. Like all sailors, he would have received a basic first aid course, but for all intents and purposes, he was a butler. Dory Miller was first sent to the ammunition ship USS Pyro, which, sidebar, hell of a name for an ammunition ship, and then on the 2nd of January 1940, he would be posted to the battleship USS West Virginia, then a part of the US Pacific Fleet. It would be on the West Virginia that the big towering figure that was Dory Miller would find success boxing, a common sport amongst the world's naval forces and a favourite in the US Navy at the time, amongst the fleets who bluntly had little to do but wait and drill. Miller would stay aboard the West Virginia save for a brief secondment to the USS Nevada until August 3rd, where he would then be promoted to Mess Attendant 2nd Class in February 1941. So was his life at Pearl Harbor, on Battleship Row, serving meals, boxing, serving meals and boxing. That is, of course, until the day of infamy.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
The attack on Pearl Harbor began for Dory Miller just before 8 a.m. on the 7th of December 1941, when aircraft from the Akagi began their torpedo runs on the ship. Miller had been awake for 2 hours already, having served breakfast, and was midway through his laundry duties when the call for general quarters was sounded. Miller made his way to his battle station, but noted upon arrival that a torpedo hit had destroyed it. He would then make his way amidships, where he reported to an officer that he was available for other duties. Lieutenant Commander Johnson, the ship's communications officer, then grabbed Miller and had him assist the mortally wounded Captain Bennion with another sailor, and they took him to a cot on the deck nearby, where the captain refused to leave his post. The captain would actually choose to be carried to the navigation bridge, and he would begin commanding his ship, all the while bleeding out through a gaping wound in his abdomen. Captain Bennion, for his actions, would later be awarded the Medal of Honor. Spotting Miller nearby, Lieutenant Frederick White and Ensign Delano together began loading in the unmanned 50 caliber machine guns just after the conning tower. The two officers assisted Dory with how to operate the weapon. It was a war, they were being attacked, it didn't matter what his skin colour was, they needed help. And they asked him initially to help feed ammunition to the gun. Lieutenant White, though, was forced to divert his attention elsewhere, and it was here that Doris Miller would make history. With nothing more than a quick introduction on how to load the weapon, Miller opened fire, and he kept firing, downing at least one attacking aircraft, although official reports say 2. Unofficially, though, he damaged up to 6, possibly 8. When ammunition ran out, he wasn't done. He would then drag wounded men from the damaged sections of the ship through water and oil to safety, saving their lives. West Virginia would thankfully avoid the fate of Oklahoma, with her crew ensuring she sank on an even keel, assisting with her eventual refloating and recovery. In total, 132 men died on the West Virginia that day, and a further 52 were wounded from bombs and torpedo strikes. That 132 would have been higher if not for the actions of Doris Miller. Not even a week later, on the 13th of December, Miller reported fit for duty to the heavy cruiser USS Indianapolis. Miller's actions were in the minds of many people worthy of the nation's highest award, the Medal of Honor. However, there was one big, glaring problem. Miller was black. That's it. No lack of witnesses to his heroism or bravery. He was black, and that just wasn't okay for the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, who believed firmly black sailors do not belong in combat roles. On January 1st, 1942, as the US Navy began to get itself together following the attack, they released a list of names of people who were noted on December 7th as going above and beyond the call of duty and in need of recognition. One of those was an unnamed black man, and initially there was a push to find this man and award him the Distinguished Service Cross. On March 12th, the man was finally revealed by the Associated Press to be Doris Miller, and it was later confirmed by the Navy Department along with details of his actions. New York Senator James M. Meade would introduce a bill following this news to award Miller with the Medal of Honor, with Michigan Congressman John Dingell Sr. introducing a second bill to the House requesting the same outcome. Miller would then be recognized as one of America's first war heroes by the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, and he would highlight his actions with a letter. But after a CBS broadcast on the radio on April 1st, the news reached the wider public about what Miller had actually done, and there was a concerted push to award him the Medal of Honor. But, again, the big but. Frank Knox believed black men had no place in combat roles, and because of that, Doris Miller was not worthy of the Medal of Honor. Knox then formally denied it and made a recommendation that he not be awarded the Medal of Honor based on this fact. Just because of his skin colour. On May 11th, President Roosevelt would approve the Navy Cross for Miller, then the highest award ever bestowed upon a black sailor in the United States Navy. The medal itself would be awarded on the deck of USS Enterprise by Admiral Chester Nimitz, who pointed out that Miller was the first black man to receive such an award, and saying plainly he believed he would not be the last. On June 1st, he was promoted to Mess Attendant First Class, and then he would again, while still attached to Indianapolis, be sent on a war bond tour where he would give presentations in California, Dallas, and Waco, generally targeting audiences in minority neighborhoods. He would also then be placed in 1943 on a propaganda poster that you can now see on screen. Miller's rank would change again to steward's mate in February 1943 following a shuffling of rank names by the US Navy, and on the 15th of May he would report to Puget Sound Naval Yard to join the newly commissioned escort carrier USS Liscome Bay. Liscome Bay was a part of a new breed of small carriers designed to escort convoys in the Atlantic and in the Pacific, particularly invasion forces for the ongoing island-hopping campaign towards the Japanese home islands. She wasn't huge by any means, but she was vital, and interestingly, she was just the second of a 50-ship class of the Casablanca class. In total, the Liscome Bay was about 10,000 tons at full load and 512 feet or 156 metres long, with 27 embarked aircraft. After working up and engaging in a quick mission to transfer aircraft from San Francisco to San Diego, Liscome Bay would actually head to the Pacific as flagship of Carrier Division 24 under the leadership of Rear Admiral Henry Mullenix. Carrier Division 24 would then be assigned to Task Force 52 under Admiral Turner, and the carrier's first and last mission would be to support the naval assault on Makin Island as part of Operation Corbash, better known today as the Gilbert and Marshall Islands campaign. This campaign, it must be said, did catch Japan somewhat off guard. and the Imperial Navy would rush 9 submarines to the region to catch the Americans. 6 of these subs were sunk, but one, I-175, made it through and located a US task force consisting of 3 older battleships, a heavy cruiser, 3 escort carriers, and one of which, at the centre of the formation, was none other than Liscome Bay. This little fleet too, well, it was taking no evasive manoeuvres in expectation of a submarine attack. At 4:30 am, the destroyer USS Franks left to investigate a signal beacon, and with the gap now clear on the screen, I-175 took her shot, launching 3 Type 95 torpedoes towards the formation. At 5:10 am, a torpedo struck Liscome Bay just after the engine room and triggered a magazine explosion, turning the entire ship into a fireball that Lieutenant John Dix aboard USS Hull described with the following phrase: "It didn't look like a ship at all. We thought it was an ammunition dump. She just went whoom, an orange ball of flame." I recommend reading the late James D. Hornfish's The Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors and his other works for more information on this attack and the other actions of the US Navy's small fleet. This quote was taken directly from his work. Lieutenant Dix wasn't exaggerating though. The explosion was enormous. Shrapnel showered across the entire squadron, and one sailor was even hit by a fire extinguisher from the ship. The entire stern of the Liscome Bay was sheared off. Planes fell off the deck and part of the superstructure collapsed in onto the gaping hole. We don't know how Doris Miller spent those last 23 minutes between impact and the final loss of the ship. Given the time, it's possible that he never woke up at all. As a messmate, his duty likely would have began around 6 o'clock. But we know he didn't survive. Of the 900 men aboard the carrier, only 272 would survive in what would become one of the worst ever losses of life experienced by a single US carrier. Doris Miller's family would, in a twisted turn of fate, find out their son was missing in action, presumed dead, on December 7th, 1943. Doris Miller would be honoured with a memorial service on the 30th of April 1944 in his hometown of Waco, and on the 28th of May his old high school would actually erect a granite marker with his name. He would be presumptuously awarded the Purple Heart following his death, and Miller would later be honoured with plaques across the United States at Waco, and of course at Pearl Harbor. He would also be honoured with the naming of 5 schools in his honour, 4 in Texas, one of which is now closed, and 1 in California, along with many community centres in minority neighbourhoods and, of course, streets. As for the US Navy, the Knox-class frigate, and no, the Knox-class frigate was not named after the man who denied him his Medal of Honor, USS Miller, would be commissioned in 1973, and more recently it was announced in January 2020 that the new Gerald R. Ford-class carrier, CVN-81, would be named USS Doris Miller and sport this crest. That carrier is why I'm making this video, because there is now a concerted effort brewing amongst hard-right circles to rename this ship because apparently the name is DEI. Which to me is a complete joke, because Doris Miller was a hero, a genuine hero who selflessly acted to protect his shipmates during the attack on Pearl, only to be shafted by his own government and recognition because of the colour of his skin. It has nearly been a century since December 7th, 1941. We're not far off it. In fact, we will experience the 100th anniversary of Pearl Harbor within our lifetimes for the majority of people watching this video. I don't think this kind of hero needs to be shafted again nearly a century later, because the vibes are wrong. As it currently stands though, the USS Doris Miller is delayed in construction and was supposed to be laid down 4 months ago at the publishing of this video. However, due to delays in the construction of USS Enterprise, there have been delays in the construction of the Miller. Interestingly, like I mentioned before, it was the USS Enterprise CV-6 where Doris Miller was awarded his Navy Cross all those years ago. In a weird sort of twist of fate, they're connected again. One last thing that's interesting. The nickname Dory may have actually only occurred after the fact due to a typo or misprint in his documents. Either way, it stuck with people, and allegedly it stuck with him as well, although I am not entirely sure on whether he liked the nickname or not. Thank you all for coming. Doris Miller was a hero who was shafted by his own government, and then gave his life in service aboard an aircraft carrier. He deserves the recognition and respect, just like all of those who gave their lives in World War II for freedom do. Like, comment, subscribe, join the Patreon. I need to advertise that more, and I'll catch you all next time.